everyone, Taylor from Doomed to Fail. Today's re-release is episode 14, part 2. We only have like 26 episodes that we can have re-releases because those are our doubles, so we're almost to the end of this. But this re-release is on Thomas, Bradford, and William Morton. They are two men in the Plymouth Puritan beginnings of America, people coming over from Europe times, and it's a classic tale of Puritans are the worst. And the reason that they moved to the Americas is because everybody in England was like, you guys are a lot even for us. Like, this is no fun. So cool. And one of them wanted to have a little more fun than the other, and he got kicked out. So I think this is a short one. Maybe not my best because I don't remember a ton about it, but I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't tell you that. And I hope you love it. And if you wanted to go back and listen to anything, it's all available everywhere you listen to podcasts. And thank you for your continued support. We really love doing this, and we love that you listen. Thanks.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
We're talking stereotypes.
That's true.
Nothing could possibly go wrong.
God, what's happened to me?
All right, I'm going to go to mine.
Let's hear it.
All right.
I forgot what you're drinking already.
Oh, like a watery ale instead of water.
Cool.
Okay, so to transition over to history, this story and next week's story are like an attempt to somehow talk about America and like how it got so weird. Like it's always been weird, but like now things are really bad, like good versus evil, bad. So for this one, my cousin, okay. This is like the origins of some of our stereotypes is actually also what I'm talking about as well. So I'm also put the word stereotype in my notes too. So talking about stereotypes in a different way. My cousin Lindsay, who's the smartest of my cousins, suggested this, and also her birthday was yesterday. So happy birthday, Lindsay. You're the best. And I also wrote this very, very late last night, and I wrote in all caps, highlighted, warning, this story contains 843 tangents. So there's a lot of tangents in here. This is kind of a rolling story. It's like story time with Taylor, what's happening right now. So come back with me in time to the 1600s. Someday, I might talk about the Salem witch trials. It's not today. They happened like 50 years or so after the story we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to talk about Thomas Morton and William Bradford. One's fun and one is not fun. And they sort of represented two different Americas. And Lindsay, my cousin, called them that they remind her of a Harry and a Draco, which I think totally makes sense. Like one's fun, one's not fun.
What's Draco?
From Harry Potter, Draco the Bad.
Oh, Draco Malfoy. Got it.
Yeah. So I also like to introduce a new segment to the show. It is called I Already Have Children and I Will Have No More. Here are some names I forgot to consider when I was having them, and I give them to you. You're welcome. Are you excited?
I'll tell you offline why I'm not, but go ahead.
Two names that I forgot to name my children from the Salem witch trials are Cotton and Increase who are the Mathers, who are part of the Salem witch trials. I just like love those names so much, and they're just like so weird. They're both bananas. Like Cotton is like not a name, and Increase is like a verb. I just love it.
It only works because of the Mathers part.
It's so great.
Cotton Mather. Is it Mathers?
Yeah.
Mathers?
Mathers. Mathers.
Yeah, Mathers. Yeah, Mathers.
Yeah.
Say it so many times it stops making sense.
So I have two places to start for some context. One, Salem, which is, we'll talk a little bit about that, and then the whole area of like Massachusetts in this time. Like this is like the beginning of English people coming over to America. So I'll start with Salem, even though it's not what we're talking about. We'll talk about it a little bit because it's something that like we learn in America very early. Like we learned this story like really early in school. We love it. It's like super fun. We watch the movie or a play of The Crucible. We think about how cool it is. You know, like I know, like I don't know, being a teenage girl in America, I feel like you think about this all the time when you're like in that time. We also hear that maybe it's like ergot, the fungus that can make you crazy, and it wasn't. Some people might think it was God. It wasn't. But the feeling that I get that I empathize with the Salem witch trials is the feeling of like being a teen girl and being like, won't something cool happen ever? Could something cool happen? Could something have happened to these girls? Like, couldn't something cool happen? But the answer is no, like not this doesn't happen. And I remember like thinking about the Salem witch trials and like this period of time. A couple years ago, there was a new book written about it, and I was really excited about it. And it came out, but it was awful. Like, it was like unreadable. It was like really bad. So if you do want to read anything about it, read the Shirley Jackson kind of short essay on it. But essentially, just to like put some context around Puritans and the Salem witch trials, what happened then is Puritans are boring. They suck. Life is hard. And they make it 100 times harder by being boring and mean. So the girls were told again and again that they had no purpose. They were lonely. They were bored. They had no future. They saw women who were widowed begging door to door. They saw old women alone and dirty, poor and hungry. They didn't want that. They just like wanted something to happen. And if you just pray all day, nothing happens because that's not real. So they felt disappointed and betrayed by life. So they made shit up. They wanted to be touched. They wanted to be noticed. They wanted to do something that moved any needle before they were expected to be married and have 45 babies and die in childbirth. Like that's what happened, but it's still fun to talk about it and think about how crazy everyone got, like the crazy mass hysteria, and so many people died.
You don't think ergot had anything to do with it?
No. There would have been other things that happened as well. It's not like a one symptom thing. It's something like other things would have happened that did not happen, so it was not that.
Okay.
It was just girls needing attention. But yeah, but it's still fun. Like I still love thinking about it. I think it's a great story, a great piece of our history. And then thinking about, so there's like that is in the background, like people believe in witches, they believe in all this stuff. Massachusetts, and they say this in the last podcast when they talk about the Salem witch trials, but like Massachusetts is creepy in like the woods and the dark. Have you been there? Like in like a big northeastern woods?
So I haven't been there, but I remember we discussed it. I forgot which case it was. Maybe it was the Murdoch case where I discussed like the opposite of Southern Gothic is American Gothic, which is like the northern version of that, which is awesome. Like I think I love that aesthetic.
Me too. It's really creepy. It's cool. Like did you see The Witch? That movie?
I did.
Yeah, so like picture like that. Like I love the part in like the very beginning when they're leaving the like the settlement and the gates are closing and you just see like everyone's covered in mud and it's raining and there's like a Native American who walks by and everyone just looks miserable. So like that's like kind of happening. I remember in high school, like I went to Massachusetts with some friends and we saw the Blair Witch Project and like lost our minds. And then like we went to our friend's house and these dudes were like telling a ghost story about the woods and like I thought I was going to die. Like I screamed for hours. It was like super fun and like that's what like the woods are scary. So we're in like a scary time. I wanted to like wear all black and a witch's hat, but my headphones wouldn't work with that, so I didn't do it. But
Fair.
It's witchy. We're witchy in a fun way. So I also want to mention that every Thanksgiving I like to yell about how the Puritans left England because they sucked. Like we were told in America in school that they left for religious freedom, and at least when I was little, I assumed that meant, or I was told, or I believed that it meant you could be whatever religion you want, and America was a melting pot, and it was awesome. I don't feel like that's what they're doing at all, and that's not what's happening today either. We know it's not true. It's just Christians who want to be the only religion.
Yeah.
So, blah blah blah. So that's the place that we're in. It's dark and creepy. We're about to hit the witch trials in a few decades. So people are like they're very very Puritan at the moment. Here's this relationship that helps really shape the American story of like two different Americas. So we're in the early 1600s. There's Thomas Morton. He's the fun one. He was a lawyer and a trader who arrived in 1624 from England. He settled in an area called Merrymount and established a trading post there. He was free thinking. He supported Native American rights, which put him at odds with some of the Puritans. So he was born in 1579 in Devonshire, England. He went to Oxford. He sailed to Newfoundland in 1612 to start a fishing colony, and he moved to Plymouth where he became a fur trader in like 1613. So he had his own, by the 1620s, he has his own little village, like he's not like in charge of, but he lives there, called Merrymount, and as fun there as it can be in this time to live, if that makes sense.
So dire and grim and awful.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. In 1625, he wrote a book called New English Canon that described his experiences in America and criticized the Puritans for like being intolerant. because they are. They are. So the other person in the story, William Bradford, he's not fun. He was a leader of the Plymouth Colony. He was a governor of Plymouth for like 30 years, which is like the famous one. And someone might say like, oh, that's the, good American values, but like, no, he was pretty awful. And he's also very much a Slytherin. Like there's lots of capes and he's not any fun.
I mean, you're kind of describing a pretty cool guy, though.
I mean, he's not fun though.
I know, but I would like to wear a cape, and
I 100% support capes. You can definitely do that.
Okay.
So just some facts, some numbers about William Bradford. He was born in 1590 in Austerfield, England. He became part of the separatist movement, which ties back to England being with the Church of England. He thought that was corrupt, which we know it is. It was because it was made for King Henry VIII to be able to divorce and kill his wives. But Bradford, this is cool. So he escaped to Holland to escape religious persecution. So this is part of the American story that we hear where like the Puritans are being persecuted in England and they had to leave. So they went via Holland and he ended up sailing to America on what's the most famous ship that sailed to America?
The Mayflower, Santa Maria.
The Mayflower.
Okay.
He flew. I said it again. He sailed over on the Mayflower.
Wait, there was three, right?
Cool. No, that was no. You're thinking of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Those are Christopher Columbus's.
So ridiculous.
Fars, you were born in England.
Better.
So he came on the Mayflower, which is cool. He was the governor of Plymouth, which is like the famous colony. He had a common course system, so like there was like communal farming and property ownership, which sounds a little socialist, but he was kind of like a stern ruler of Plymouth. So he and William Bradford didn't get along from the start, and in 1627 he goes over and arrests Morton and dismantles his trading post because he didn't like what he was doing. So they're like two like kind of rival towns like living next to each other. So here's the year where the big fun versus not fun battle happens between these two. So in 1628, there's a May Day celebration. Do you know what May Day is?
That was a Canadian thing. Is that when their prime minister is born? I make that up. Do we not celebrate Justin Trudeau's birthday?
What? I totally, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't celebrate the current president's birthday. Maybe they have a prime minister day. I have no idea. Canadians, let us know. So May Day is now a holiday for workers' rights, but it's in pre-Christian Europe, so a long time ago. It was the beginning of summer and fertility, a time for feasting and dancing. Winter sucks, and I feel this, like you just want to be happy and have it be warm finally. So have you ever seen a maypole? It's like a tall wooden pole, and you do like a dance around it. Like, did you ever see?
Where would I see this? Like, in what situation would I be exposed to this?
Did you see Midsummer?
Yeah.
So like they do it in there, I think. So it's like a big pole and you have like ribbons and then you like do a dance around it and as you do the dance, the ribbons tie on the pole. It's very pretty.
Okay.
So it's like a spring festival. And then of course like Christians were like, make it about Jesus. So it became about like devotion and prayer. There's the May Queen, which is like what Florence Pugh was in Midsummer. And so I don't know. I wrote this very late last night, but I wrote, have you read any books or seen Midsummer to anyone? So just like that's what we're looking at.
Hey, Taylor, can I interrupt you for a sec?
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe it's a good idea if you put that jug of milk behind you in the fridge instead of letting it sit outside by the window?
It's not milk. Could you imagine? It's first of all, it's distilled water. It's my mom's ironing water.
I see. Okay. Just checking.
Why would I just have a gallon of milk in here?
I thought maybe you forgot and you can't see it, but I can, so.
Oh my God, what if I was just like drinking a glass of milk?
It's almost as gross as rabbit's blood.
It is. I can imagine. It's gross. Okay, so it's 1628. It's May. We can assume the winter's been awful. Morton, the fun guy, and his followers celebrate May Day with like a huge party. There's drinking, dancing, merrymaking. This is a quote that was on Wikipedia. It says, they set up a maypole, drinking and dancing about it many days together, inviting the Indian women for their consorts, right? Dancing and frisking together, like so many fairies or furies rather, and worse practices, as if they had anew revived and celebrated the feasts of ye Roman goddess Flora, or ye beastly practices of ye mad, oh my God, I can't even pronounce it, Bacchus, like the god, you know. Anyway, it was rowdy.
Bacchus, that's the god
Of wine,
of
you know?
wine. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like wine, a lot of drinking, a lot of just like sex and not Puritan things. So it sounds super fun. And there's always like something in history that would be fun to like go back to. This feels something that's like not known as well as like, going to like a big battle or something. But I think it'd be super fun to go back to and be like, this party is super fun. It's like,
Yeah, it'd be
and
like Coachella when we're in Palm Springs.
it'll be just kind of almost exactly like that. So imagine
Yeah.
that with like Puritans staring at them, which is exactly what's happening in America right now. So yes. And I also like love, well, I was thinking about like, what if I was there? Like, what would it be like? And also wanted to, if I haven't told you before, when we did one Christmas in Colonial Williamsburg, and it was awesome. And like, I love like doing immersive history. There were a lot of capes, and they had like these activities, and like went to like a ball and learned this like dance, like line dance or whatever. And I was dancing with someone, like some like actor, and he was like, "Did you hear that Washington is going to speak later today in the town square?" And I was like,
That is
"Oh,
so
really? It's
fun.
fucking so fun."
That is so fun. One thing we never talked about is when I was a kid, I used to love going to Civil War reenactments. Those are my favorite thing because they would go so in detail. Like they would have like the little shitty tents, and there'd be like a pot of stew over a fire, and it was
I
just
love
so
it.
much. Yeah, it was really good.
That's so fun. I remember in Brooklyn, they do like a reenactment of like a Revolutionary War fight, and I like met someone that was dressed like Benjamin Franklin. That's my picture in our Slack is me and the Benjamin Franklin because I was so excited. I was like, "This is awesome!" It was just like weird old man, but I was like, "This is so fun."
Oh my
Um,
God, that is Benjamin Franklin.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was very very fun. So they're so mad about this over in Plymouth that they go over and they arrest Morton for having this big party, and they give him a trial, and they're going to send him back to England. But instead of like giving him a ticket back to England, they just maroon him on an island and wait for someone to pick him up, which is
That'd be fun.
what
I
you do.
mean, if you have an axe with you and like some survival tools and water, it'd be cool.
Yes. But he did get picked up and he went back to England. And then the colony, the community of Merrymount lasted about a year without Morton, but then it collapsed without him as like kind of their leader. So the Puritans kind of took over and like they kind of took over for the rest of the land. So I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened to them later, but really what this is like this is a story of we've barely English people have barely even been here for like a couple years, and they're already this huge clash between like the old world and the new world. So there's like a new world where we're maybe going to be more free and be more creative and like more not so strict and religious, and then there's this old world that the Puritans are trying to replicate in the new world. But the whole thing is like the old world never existed. Like there is no like perfect Puritan world, and so they're trying to do that, and like nothing nostalgic is true. So it's like kind of a whatever, they're trying to do something that was like almost impossible, which is why there's like so much conflict. So there's like this is like a story of the conflict between individuality and being more diverse and more tolerant, and then not being like really religious.
Well, I think that's like our interpretation of it. So what did they think they were fighting about?
They were fighting about this big party and being like not being as religious as them.
That's it.
Yeah. They were offended by the party. They called it ungodly.
Okay, that's kind of that's like you just didn't get invited. That's the problem. Your problem
I
is you
think
didn't get invited.
it's a good point. It's a really
Also,
good point.
my shoes just squeaked on the mat underneath my feet. That was not a fart. Just so everybody's clear. If that did pick up in the mic, which I don't know if it did, I'm just gonna flag that so everybody knows.
That's so funny. So yeah, so you can just like use this story as like a manifestation of that old versus new, super religious versus a little more lax, like still religious, but like not as like strict and Puritan, which is like a word we use as, an adjective. So, Morton was the new world, individualism, tolerance, freedom. Bradford was old world, religion, social hierarchy, conformity. So in 1628, Morton does go back to England. He returns a year later and they arrest him again because they're like, we told you to leave. They like found him somehow. It's 1629, like go anywhere else. But they kicked him out of Massachusetts, so he could never go back to Massachusetts. again, and then he ends up going back to England and coming back and trying to make a colony in Maine. So Morton goes back and forth a few more times, a couple of failed ventures. He either died, I got two conflicting stories. One said he died in England at 64, another said he died in Maine when he was 71. So either way, he never went back to Massachusetts and didn't really have contact with the Puritans again. And Bradford died in 1644, which is about 40 years before the Salem witch trials in Plymouth at the age of 67. So he just continued to like be the leader of Plymouth and continue to have it be really strict, which, as we see with Salem, continued to be kind of the way that people acted and lived in that part of the colonies for a long time after.
What's the stereotype?
I think it's a stereotype of like a not fun, really strict religious that like I am really like offended by, and then I think maybe the other way they could see a stereotype of like someone who is being like a little bit more fun, being like ungodly and maybe like of the devil, which is like where we get to kind of like later with witches and stuff. Like if you're not doing exactly what I tell you to do and conforming, then like you must be in league with the devil.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it's like an Austin thing necessarily. I don't think I was really exposed to much in LA. So it's been mostly here, where the whole like witchy vibe that some women have here, it's like awesome. Like I love that whole.
It's so fun.
It's so fun.
Oh my God, I love it.
I mean, I told you all those crystals and all the stuff that I keep buying. Those are all these witches markets. Like they call them witches markets, and you go there, and it's just. Yeah, it's just a bunch of groovy people just living their life, and like it's. I think that some of them do like believe the stuff that they say, but in large part, it's like having a Ren fair. It's like they just want to have a good time and pretend like they're in old timey, moments, and this sage is gonna ward off evil, and it's like
I love it.
Let them have fun.
See, that's like with like that has whatever. Yeah, if you want to like burn sage in your house, or if you want to pray to make things better, I don't give a shit. My problem is when you ruin other people's lives because of your beliefs, like, and I think like witches, like your Austin witchy ladies, like they're not ruining anybody's life. They're just burning some herbs. And like, I had like everyone, I had 45 mental breakdowns during 2020, and I did buy some spell books, I was like, I'm going to start burying stuff in the backyard and like protecting my house and like doing these things. And like, that seems fun, like, why not?
I'm gonna look this up real quick because I can't remember it off the top of my head. I did get a book that was absolutely disgusting that you should look at because it was free. Books and reading. This is the least used part of my Amazon account. Okay, so damn, where is it?
This is the silent part of the episode. If there's any Puritan names that you wish you'd name your children, please give us an email at doomedtofailpod@gmail.com. I've already called Cotton an increase, but there's got to be more. Goody? Do you want to put the word Goody in front of your daughter's name? Have you thought about that? Send me an email. I've thought about it. We should talk about it more.
It's driving me nuts why I can't find this. There's a book that I got. It was Aleister Crowley's son who became like a super lame version of Aleister Crowley himself on all these books of spells that you could do, and they were like disgusting. It was, let's just say, there was a lot of like leaving bodily fluids out in the open. So much of it was that. It was just like this guy, like
male bodily fluids.
Yeah, we can say that.
Or, yeah.
Like it was. If I wasn't positive that he believed in the things that he was saying, it sounded like recipe books for Pazuzu Algarad. Like it was
exactly.
It was really, really bad.
It's so funny. Yeah, I think our stories are super similar because I think we're in like creepy, like East Coast woods, and people are just like, whether or not like Pazuzu's schizophrenia had something to do with it, which I assume that it did. Like it's that idea of being like, when will something happen? When will something happen to me? And then like I have this terrible childhood and like I want something to happen. Let me be provocative with this. And then like in colonial America, some people are like, maybe we finally have the chance to make something happen, to like do something different and to like have some free thought. And the Puritans are like, no, that's not why we're here. And then I just think it's so it's a more I think about it, the more like of a big deal it is, of a larger problem, thinking that like when I was younger, I definitely was told like we're here because people wanted to practice whatever religion they wanted, and we wanted to be, you could be whatever you wanted in America, and that's not true, and like that was never true. But like I don't know why I thought about that for a while. Come here, my daughter just came in. Look what she has.
Flo, hi Flo.
Where'd you get that? Did Stratton make it?
Is that a lion? What is that?
How do you make it? Oh, there's like a park next to my mom's house, and there was a clown, I guess, and so Florence got well, who made that then? A balloon person.
I'd rather that than a clown. There's a lot of finger pointing happening off screen.
Very cool. Balloon animal break.
Very cool.
Very, very. But you know what I mean. I feel like you can cut that out, but you know what I mean. I think it's like and now we're in this time in America today where there's this like Christian right movement that's like trying to destroy public schools and destroy publicly funded things so that everybody has to pay to go to a Christian school so they can pick out what books people read, and like just why.
I'm so glad I don't have to pay attention to any of this stuff. I just live in my little bubble.
You cannot live in your bubble. You live in America. You're going to find that something bad's going to happen to you because you're not paying attention to everybody else.
Just tell me what to vote for. I don't you tell me. I don't want to pay attention to politics anymore. I don't want to pay attention to what's going on in the world. Just you tell me what to do.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone tells me I'm going to get kicked out of Texas, but sure.
As my first thought was you should move out of Texas, but
okay.
We'll talk about that later.
I'm surprised you haven't convinced Blair.
I'm gonna wait, Blair. Sorry, I'm gonna wait until you're past having an infant, but we should talk about raising a daughter in Texas. I'm sure you've thought about it. Blair's very smart. She knows.
Sure, did the math.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and pause the recording. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And
yeah, thank you for the suggestion, Lindsay, for this, and thanks everyone who's sent us things. Super cool.
Absolutely. And I'll subscribe. All the things.
Mm-hmm. Apple Podcasts. YouTube has a lot of views, which is super cool. We got a comment, but it was from an account called Buy YouTube Followers, and I was like, well, I'm not going to buy YouTube followers, but thank you for your
interest.
Comment.
That was my dog shaking and her collar ringing. That was not me making that sound just now.
Find us on Instagram and follow us and share us in your stories. And please, thank you for listening.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Taylor.
Bye.